So, Chris, welcome. We're here today to talk about peer groups then.
Yeah.
So, let me start off with the basics. So, I suppose the peer group 101. So, what exactly are peer groups?
Yeah, peer groups are fantastic vehicles for MSPs, really for them to increase their operational maturity, Pete. They've been around for a long time. The MSP industry in particular has really taken advantage of these. We've spoken to so many MSPs around the world that have shared that really peer groups have impacted their company's development. Whether they're small or large, there's a ton of value in peer groups, and really, Pete, what it comes down to is it's a great way to exchange ideas, right? Like, help everybody kind of innovate, and think about the things that they're doing. Talk about things with fellow peers, fellow colleagues, not competitors. Talk about things like, hey, how are we doing in the terms of delivering their services, and how's our pricing compared to what you guys are up against, or even sharing their marketing strategies. We see that as a great way for folks that can take advantage of being in a room of similar minded peers, MSP owners that are trying to grow their business.
And so, are you suggesting then that these are they physical groups, or are they sort of online groups, or is it a combination of both?
That's a great question, Pete. So normally there's both, and a couple of years ago, Enable jumped into the peer group game as well, and we've created a series of these around the world. There are two types. There's an on-site version for really our medium-sized and our larger-sized MSPs. They get together once a quarter for 2 days. They rotate around sort of geographically where between where the different companies are located, but they also meet once a month online for about 90 minutes. But then there's a second option, Pete, which is a very, very popular one, and that's an online version, and they meet once a month for 90 minutes. The topics, again, will be things like growth-minded topics, efficiency topics. We use the Enable benchmark as a key foundation for those online peer groups, and so once a quarter, members of the peer group submit their financials and their operational KPIs anonymously, and then they talk about, these are what our goals were this quarter, and this is what we did to meet those goals, or this is what happened, and this is why we didn't meet those goals. It's a great chance for MSPs to be held accountable and hold each other accountable. So, really great opportunity.
And so, what sort of feedback are you getting from our partners that are involved in these groups? Are they seeing the benefit of this?
Yeah, they are saying that they're transformational. We probably have a couple of hundred partners in these peer groups spread across a number of different virtual and in-person peer groups. And number one, these are beforehand probably complete strangers to each other. Enable makes the introduction, and then really the partners become the ones that lead the meetings and decide the topics and move forward. And they found it incredibly invaluable. As a matter of fact, I was in one of the locations last week at an online or at an Insight peer group, and just about every one of them, soon as they saw each other, there were hugs, there were handshakes, there were fist bumps. I mean, these guys have built a real camaraderie with each other. They pick up the phone, they call each other in between peer group meetings. And again, most of them are all either growing their business or from a revenue perspective, or becoming much more operationally efficient and increasing their net profit.
So I think you sort of intimated towards this just now, but are the groups run and basically managed by the partners involved, or does Enable have a presence in those at all, or do we just let them get on with it?
We do. Enable is they're Enable peer groups. We use a third-party resource to again manage the groups, keep the data anonymous. We want to be very conscious that when partners are sharing financial information, that obviously Enable is not part of those discussions. But Enable's part of bringing some of the thought leaders, again, from the Enable teams, from the folks, the vendors and the partners that we know, We've had partners come in and talk that have been very successful in M&A, for example, talk to a group of $4 to $8 million MSPs. It really is up to the partners themselves and the peer groups to determine what the topics are each month, and then Enable's there to help facilitate those and sometimes lead those discussions if it warrants it.
Because I know sometimes, I mean, obviously, some people are always going to say, but we want to do something. We don't necessarily want the vendor to be part of this. We want to have our own group. Do you think is there any benefit to sort of having the vendor involved?
I think there's tons of benefit. Number one, I personally have the honor of speaking to hundreds and hundreds of MSPs, on a monthly basis, and so. It's very easy for us to sort of pair like-minded, similar size. I think that's another great point of the peer groups is you don't want to be in a peer group with somebody that's a lot larger or a lot smaller. You want similar size MSPs. And so when you try to do that on your own or you don't have a resource like a vendor to sort of collaborate, it's hard to pair those different folks together. And so having the number of resources that the vendors have to be able to bring to the table to help, but especially on the Enable side. But to your point, Pete, just like I mentioned on the financial side, there may be discussions where the group themselves want to open up a bit more and talk about, I want to show my finances, and I don't necessarily want to Enable there. And we're happy to sort of step out of those conversations. Matter of fact, we make it a point to so that everybody's comfortable sharing those details without the vendor being present.
And you talk about sort of the selection process. I mean, or sort of pulling the different partners together. Is size basically the I suppose the key criteria?
Size and really sort of maturity level. Size is a good first gauge. Maturity level is another one, right? We really want to make sure that that the MSP owners are thinking, I want to either continue to grow this business over the next 3 to 5 years. And maybe there's a plan to either exit or acquire, right? So really we try to identify those different goals of joining the peer group and match those folks together. And that's where it becomes really successful. A lot of these partners that join these peer groups have been part of an existing business transformation program, which Rob Wilburn and I run together around the world. And so we really get to know these partners. And when they say, man, we're ready for the next step, we'd love to be able to join a monthly peer group. We're going to start with the virtual one, but we may move to the on-premise one. Can you get us introduced to one of them? And we'll take a look at the existing peer groups. Is there a good fit? Or do we spin up a whole new peer group for a set of MSPs that are similar size? Yeah.
That's kind of quite interesting because that leads obviously into the next question I was going to ask, which really is like how do partners get involved with the peer groups?
It's easy. All they need to do is reach out to us here at Enable, reach out to your partner success manager. I love it when partners reach out to me, and I'd be happy to set you up with the conversation about future peer groups.
And I suppose really just kind of, and again, to really rounding this off, there was one other thing that kind of came to me. That do you find that people are reticent at first to get involved, or are they sort of like, I mean, obviously it's probably going to vary depending on the MSP, but do you find people are a little bit reticent to get involved and almost like it's a little bit too kind of revealing to go in there and bare all about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Pete. Most MSPs, as they're growing, they think they have, and maybe they do. They have some sort of a differentiated offering or a way they do things differently, and they're not necessarily willing to share that. And those are the partners that we talk to, and they say, you know what, we want to hear what others are doing, but we're not ready to share what we're doing. That's not you're not a good fit for a peer group. Really, this is about that, MSPs helping MSPs, as one of the members of one of the peer groups likes to say. And so what we love to see is partners that are willing to show a little vulnerability. Nobody, because we pair people up that are not competitors, nobody is in there to steal or hijack somebody's ideas. Everybody's in there to sort of say, hey, this worked really well for me. why don't you guys try this out? Or, if you're struggling with this, I'd love to be able to point you in another direction. Or even conversely, Pete, this didn't work well. Has anybody had any success with this? I hired a salesperson, and that salesperson didn't work out well. And that ends up turning into a giant discussions about your go-to-market and how you're how you're staffing your sales and your marketing efforts. So yeah, it really is being partners need to have a little bit of vulnerability and be willing to share, this is what we do well, or we think we do well, and this is what we're struggling with. And again, everybody in these groups is there to help each other out. They make a point of it, and we make a point of that too when we talk to partners. We want to make sure this is going to be a give and take, right? You're going to get something from it. And I love that. Well, when you give, you get, and that's one of the best messages I ever heard out of the peer group. One of the members said, "We love coming in, we love sharing, and then we get the same in reverse."
That's sort of what I was going to ask. I mean, obviously, running a business can be an incredibly lonely thing, and if I wondered if you've got a particular favorite story from a bit of feedback that you've had really from the partners involved.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a number of them, and I myself was part of an MSP, a growing MSP that joined a peer group early on and really helped us think about the way we structure our business. We were very flat. We were very much, we're going to throw whoever's the most skilled at a problem. And until we got into a peer group and really started to realize, well, we really have to separate our proactive recurring type business from our reactive professional services project type work, we were running very, very inefficient. So that's one personal story that I have. One of the other ones that I loved is one of our larger in-person peer groups. We would meet quarterly, and at one of the in-person quarterly meetings, the team members said, well, look, we're really interested in automation, and we know N-central has a ton of automation, but we'd love to see some of the other RPA vendors and technology that's out there. Let's have a discussion around that. And so in a very short period of time, we were able to grab sort of two of the major players and bring their CEOs onto a call with these other owners and have a conversation about why we should be thinking about automation at more of a process wise versus just in the actual applications and technology itself. So it's pretty great to see that, and very quickly you started to see partners' brains sort of, wow, you know what, I'm thinking about this the wrong way. I'm throwing bodies and I'm doing things way too manually. I need to take a step back and make sure that I'm thinking about this the correct way. So those are a couple of the big ones. It's really, to your point, Pete, there's no grocery store or mega store that you can go into and take a look at where you compare next to the others in the market. But when you can get into a room of peers, you can say, hey, this is what we're doing. Does that seem off? And even see it side by side from a financial perspective in the benchmark. It gives you a good check on how you're running the business and if you need to pull a different lever to pivot.
Excellent. Well, Chris, it's been a fascinating insight into how they work, and I would say it sounds like really the sort of thing all our partners should be getting involved in. Really.
Yeah, for sure, Pete. I could not recommend, and I would tell you that everybody that's part of the peer groups today would say the exact same thing. Could not recommend peer groups any higher. They are absolutely one of the most game-changing things for my personal MSP, and I've seen it as for other MSPs as well. Again, it's just a chance. A lot of times you've never run a business before, you've never run the financial side of a business before, you've never had to deal with HR issues before, and so getting fellow colleagues, fellow peers into a room together and being able to share those ideas and those questions that you have is just an amazing opportunity.
Excellent. Well, as you said, if people are interested, then it's a case of reaching out to you, getting involved in one of the business transformation programs, and taking it from there.
That's right. Your growth strategist, your account managers, your partner success manager, anybody that you typically talk to from Enable should be able to send them our way. But I'd be happy to get on the phone with you as well.
Perfect. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Thank you.